Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is John and I'm going to be explaining today the game of Baccarat. In this game, each side gets 2 cards, player or the banker. You can choose to wager on player or wager on the banker. Your choice. It's about a 50-50 thing. So when I'm going to explain it, if either side gets an 8 or a 9, it's a natural and there'd be no draw, no drawing of cards. If you have like a 7 and a 6, that's 13. You drop the first digit. You only use the last digit of the number. So if you have an 8 and a 7, that's 15. You drop the first digit. You only have 5. So let me explain it, show you. Here, the player shows 6 and stands. Remember, player stands on total of 6 or higher. Here, the banker has an 8. That's a natural 8. There will be no draw. So the banker here wins natural 8 over 6. Show you a few hands about this game. Here the player shows 6 and stands. Remember, the player stands on totals of 6 or higher. Banker has 5. Okay, when the player stands on totals of 6 or higher, the banker always draws on totals of 0 through 5. So the banker's reduced to 4. So here the player wins 6 over 4. Player shows 2. Banker has 2. Okay, this is going to be a 2-card draw. Card for the player, card for the banker. Here the player is reduced to 1. Card for the banker. Banker wins 7 over 1. Remember I told you 7 and 5 is 12, but you drop the first digit. A few more hands I'll show you. Here the player shows 3. Banker has 3. Okay, player goes first. Since it has since it has less than 6, the player is going to draw a card. Now, whether or not the banker draws a card is dependent on the player's 3rd card. It's called the 3rd card rule. Here, the player is increased to 6. When the banker has 3, it always draws on 3 unless this 3rd card is an 8. Since this card is not an 8, the banker is going to draw on 3. The banker is increased to 4. So here the players win 6 over 4. So if you bet player, you win even money. If you bet banker and win, you charge a 5% commission after you win. So if you bet $10 and you win $10, but they'll take 50 cents and they'll put it in your spot. Say you play in spot number 4, they put it in your box, and you have to pay that commission before you leave the table or at the end of the shoe, whichever comes first. Players natural 8, there will be no draw. Players win natural 8 over 3. Remember, when either side has an 8 or a 9, there is no draw. Here player shows 7 and stands. Remember, players stand on totals of 6 or higher. Since the players stand on 7, remember the banker draws on 0 through 5. Since the player has 0 through 5, it's going to draw. Players win 7 over 2. Had this been like this, let's not do that. Here the player shows 4, banker has 3. Okay, this is a situation where the banker has 3 again. So whether or not the banker draws a 3rd card is dependent on the player's 3rd card. If the player does not draw a 3rd card, like if it has 6 or 7, if the player has 6 or 7, it's going to stay. The banker always draws on 3. But since here the player is drawing a 3rd card, it's a face card. So remember, the banker always draws on totals of 3 unless the 3rd card is an 8. Since it's not an 8, we're going to draw a card here. Here the bankers win 6 over 4. Players show 5. Bankers have 4. Okay, this is a good one. Remember, the player draws on totals of 5 or less. So the player automatically draws a card. Now, whether or not the banker draws on 4 is dependent on this 3rd card. When the banker has 4, it draws another card when this 3rd card is a 2 through 7. Since this card is not a 2 through 7, the bankers are going to stay on 4, and the players win 5 over 4. Now, had this card been a a 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, here, for example, here, the players draw a 5. And bankers have 4. It draws a third card over here when this card is a 2 through 7. Since this card is a 2 through 7, the bankers would draw another card here. Even though the players are reduced to nothing, players had 5, they drew a 5 reduced to nothing, the banker will still draw a third card here since this card is a 2 through 7. And it draws a 4. So bankers win 4 over nothing. The third card rule is what you really need to learn and know well. Players show 3, bankers have 7. Okay, so bankers are always going to stay on totals of 7. And if either side had 8 or 9, it would be a natural, and there would be no cards drawn. But players will draw a third card since they have less than 6. Here, the bankers always stay on 7, remember. Bankers win 7 over 3. So had you bet, say, $25 on the banker, and you won, you'd have to pay a commission of $1.25, $1.25. So if you bet say you bet number 5, you play in spot number 5, they'd put $1.25 in your box and leave it there. Players show Baccarat. That's nothing. You can say nothing or you can say Baccarat. Bankers show 4. And remember the third card rule on 4, when bankers have 4, it draws another, the banker will draw another third card when this third card for the player is 2 through 7. Okay, it's not a 2 through 7, so players are increased to 8. Players win 8 over 4. Are you starting to understand the game now? I hope. Players show 5. Bankers have 4. Okay, this is a good one. Remember, the players always draw a third card when they have 5 or less. Players have 5 or less. Going to draw a card. Players are reduced to 2. 5 plus 7 is 12. You drop the first digit. Players have 2. Now the bankers have 4. Remember, the bankers draw a third card here when the player's third card is 2 through 7. Since this card is a 2 through 7, the bankers will take another card. The bankers are reduced to 1. So here, the players win 2 over 1. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot to win. You just need to have one more point than the other side. Players show 2. Bankers have 6. Okay, this is a good one. Remember, the players always draw in totals of 5 or less. Bankers have 6. Okay, when the bankers have 6, they draw a third card when and only when the player draws a third card and the player's third card is a 6 or a 7. The only time the banker draws on 6 is when the players draw a third card and it's a 6 or a 7. Players increase to 9. So since this card is a 6 or a 7, the bankers will draw another card on 6. It's a rare situation, but it happens. Okay, the bankers remain at 6. So here the players win 9 over 6. That's a good one. That's when the bankers have 6, it's a special situation where they draw a third card on 6. Only when the player's third card is a 6 or 7. Okay, here the players show 6 in stands. Remember, the player's never going to draw a total of 6. Bankers have 7. Okay, so the bank when the players stand on 6 or 7, the banker is going to stand on totals of 6 or higher. So here the bankers win 7 to 6. If they have a 2-card 6 and a 2-card 6, it's a tie, 6 to 6. Okay, players show 4. Bankers have 5. Okay, this is a good one too. Remember, when players have 5 or less, they draw a third card. There's no natural here. There's no 8. There's no 9. So the player's going to go first. Players are increased to 6. Now the rule for the bankers on 5 is the bankers draw a third card when the player's third card is a 4 through 7. These are the kind of things you just kind of memorize, write it down on a card, study it, live it, learn it, know it. Since this card is not a 4, 5, 6, or 7, the bankers are going to stay on 5. And here the players will win 6 over 5. Remember, for the banker to draw on 5, and the player draws, it has to be a 4, 5, 6, or 7. If the player didn't draw, say for example the players had 7, remember that if the players have 6 or 7 in stand, the banker will always draw on totals of 5 or less. So for example, if the players had 7 here and the bankers have 5, obviously the players are going to stand on 7. The banker would draw another card. Okay, draw another card. So here the player still wins 7 over 4. Players show 1. Remember, a face card in 1 is 1. Bankers have 3. Okay, since players have 5 or less, the player is going to draw a third card. Now, whether or not the banker draws a third card on 3 is dependent on the third card. It's called the third card rule. It's going to always draw a third card unless this third card is an 8. It's called a 38 special. When the bankers have 3, always draw a third card. Of course, I set this deck up, so the banker's going to stay on 3. The player is going to win 9 over 3. That's the only time the banker is going to stay on 3 is if that player's third card is an 8. But I did set this deck up, so. Here the players show 2. Bankers have 7. Okay, there's no natural. The banker's going to always stay on 7, remember. And so the players has less than 5. 5 or less. So here the banker's going to win 7 over 5. I don't know how many hands I set up, but it might be coming to an end, so we may be doing random soon. Players show nothing, Baccarat. Bankers have 6. Player's going to draw a third card, and whether or not the banker draws on 6 is dependent on that all-important third card. If the third card is a 6 or a 7, the bankers will draw a third card. Okay, it's not a 6 or 7, so the players are increased to 4, but the bankers win 6 over 4. So had you bet the banker, you'd win even money and then take out some change or whatever. If you bet $50, for example, it would be $2.50 that put in your box. They have usually have little lammers, but I don't have lammers here. They look something like this, but they have a number on it. Those things are too expensive. Maybe when my channel gets big, I'll buy some, but they're like $30, $40. Players show 1. Bankers have 2. Okay, neither side has a natural, so the player goes first. Player has 5 or less, so the player is going to draw a third card. The banker has 2. When the banker has 2 and the player is drawing a third card, both it's going to be a 2-card draw here. Card here, card here. Players are increased to 4. The bankers are reduced to nothing, so players win 4 over nothing. Okay, players show 6 and stand. So remember, players always stand on 6 or higher. Bankers show 2. So since the player stood on a 6 or a 7, if the player stands on a 6 or 7, the banker is going to always draw on totals of 5 or less. Bankers are increased to 4, but the players win 6 over 4. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll try to respond as soon as possible, which will be pretty soon. Players show 4, bankers have 6. Okay, so it's going to be, remember, neither side has a natural, so players draw on totals of 5 or less. Okay, the players are reduced to 1. 14 and 7 is 21. You drop the first digit, you only have 1. Players show 1. Remember, the banker has 6, so it draws a third card here when the players draw a card and it's a 6 or a 7. Since this card is a 6 or 7, the bankers will take another. Bankers are reduced to 5, but the bankers still win 5 over 1. 6 and 9 is 15. You drop the first digit, so that's 5. Players have 1, so the bankers win 5 over 1. Players show 5. Bankers have 5. Okay, this is a good one. Neither side has a natural, so players with 5 or less, they're going to draw a third card. Now remember, when is the banker going to draw a third card here? It's all important. It's all dependent on this third card of the player. Player remains at 5. Okay, bankers have 5. You draw the third card when this card is 4 through 7. 4, 5, 6, or 7 only. Since this card is not a 4, 5, 6, or 7, the bankers will remain on 5 and stay on 5. So it's a tie, 5 to 5. Usually draw a line like that. So it's player 5, banker 5. So it's a tie hand. You know, you don't win, you don't lose. If you bet player or banker, you don't win, you don't lose. If you bet tie, say you bet tie here, you get paid at odds of 8 to 1 usually. Almost always it's 8 to 1. Players show 6 and stand. Bankers have 6. Okay, this is a tie hand, 6 to 6. The banker doesn't draw on 6 because the player did not draw a third card and it's not a 6 or 7. So 6 to 6, it's a tie. 6 to 6 is always a tie, no matter what way you slice it. Players show natural 9, there will be no draw. Players win, natural 9 over 6. So it doesn't matter what the bankers have here. The best they can hope for is a tie. So players win with a natural 9, 9 over 6. Show you a few hands. I don't know how long this video is gone. It's got to be a few minutes already. Players show Baccarat, nothing, 0. Bankers have 7, okay. Since the players have 5 or less and the banker stands on 7, players are going to draw a third card. Okay, here, banker wins, 7 over nothing. Sometimes I have side bets, and all the side bets are different. You can look at my channel. I have all kind of side bet rules, but the main game is banker or player. Okay, player Baccarat, nothing. Bankers win with a natural 8. Natural 8 over nothing. Players, natural 8 again. No draw. Players win, natural 8 over nothing. Show you a few more hands. I didn't set up this. This is going to be on the fly here. Players 7 and stand. Bankers 2. Remember, players stand on totals of 6 or 7. Card for the banker. Players win, 7 over 2. See if we can get a few interesting hands here. I didn't set up this, so. Players, natural 9. That's not interesting. Okay, banker is 9. This is a tie hand, not natural 9 to natural 9. Come on, cards. Show some interesting hands. Something I can explain to the people. Players show 1. Bankers have 2. This is boring. This is a 2-card draw. Card for the player, card for the banker. Let's change it up. Okay, this is more interesting. Here the players show 5 and the banker have 4. So since the player has 5 or less, is going to draw a third card. The bankers have 4. Remember the banker 4 rule. The banker 4 rule says it will draw a third card when the player draws a third card and it's a 2 through 7. So if this card is a 2 through 7, the banker will draw again. Okay, it's not a 2 through 7. So here the players will win 5 over 4. The banker stays on 4 since this card is not a 2 through 7. Show a few more hands. The video's got to be about 10 minutes if I had to guess. Players show 2. Bankers have 6. Okay, this is a good one. Neither side has a natural, so players go first. They have 5 or less. Players remain at 2. Now, the banker stays on 6 since this card is not a 6 or a 7. Bankers stay on 6. The bankers win 6 over 2. Player Baccarat, nothing. Bankers 4. Okay, this is a good one. Neither side has a natural, so players go first. Players have 5 or less, so the players go first. Players increase to 8. Now, bankers have 4. The banker is going to draw a third card when the player's third card is a 2 through 7. It's the banker 4 rule. Bankers have 4, 2 through 7. It's not a 2 through 7, so the players win 8 over 4. Players Baccarat, nothing. Bankers win, natural 9. Let's change this around. Here the players show 4, bankers have 5. Neither side has a natural, so the players go first. Less than 5 or less. Players are increased to 9. Okay, the bankers have 5. The bankers draw a third card on 5 when the player's third card is a 4 through 7, a 4, 5, 6, or 7. Since this card is a 4, 5, 6, or 7, the bankers will draw a third card. Okay, here, the players win 9 over 2. So that was a good one. Remember, let's show it again. When the players have 4, it's going to always draw a third card. Players go first, obviously. And the banker has a 5. The banker's going to draw a third card when the player's third card is a 4, 5, 6, or 7. Had the player had a 6 or a 7, the banker would automatically draw. Since the player doesn't have a 6 or a 7, player goes first. Oh, I don't do that one. How about that one? Pretty much the same. Players are reduced to 1, but the banker must draw a third card since this card is a 4, 5, 6, or 7. Bankers draw a third card and are reduced to 3. Even though the bankers are reduced to 3, the bankers still win 3 over 1. All right, a couple more hands. I'm running out of cards. Players 1, bankers nothing. It's going to be a 2-card draw. Neither side has a natural, and both sides are 5 or less. So anytime there's no natural and both sides are 5 or less, let's cancel that. Anytime it's not a natural and both sides are 2 or less, because if the banker has 3, there's special rules. If the banker has 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, well, not going to draw on 7, but if the banker has 3, 4, 5, or 6, it's going to have special rules when it's going to draw. But since both sides are 2 or less, the player has 1, banker has nothing. Since both sides have 2 or less, it's always going to be a 2-card draw. Okay, the players are increased to 3, bankers have nothing. Bankers are increased to 1. So players win 3 over 1. Sorry about that mistake, but if both sides don't have a natural and both sides are 2 or less, like 0, 1, or 2, banker 0, 1, or 2, it's going to always be a 2-card draw. I'll see if I can get an example. Players show 3, bankers have 8. No, that's not a good example. I need a face card. Here we go. Okay. The player is always going to draw on 3. The banker is not always going to draw on 3. But since the player has 5 or less, it's going to draw. And the banker is always going to draw a 3rd card. Doesn't matter what the player draws here. The banker only has 2. If the banker has 0, 1, or 2, it's always going to draw a 3rd card. Players are reduced to 2, then card for the banker. Bankers are reduced to 1, so the player wins 2 over 1. If you have any questions, remember at the end of the shoe, the yellow card or the red card comes out, then the dealer will ask you to settle your commission. Sir, you owe $2.50. Okay, and they give you $2.50. Hopefully they didn't go busted. Okay, number 5 is $1.25. Sir, you owe $1.25. Okay, here it is. Keep the change. All right, y'all have a good day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Subscribe for more.